Whoop, 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 whoop. Hello and welcome to Maxima Insights. I'm your host Felician, and today we'll be talking about how we help the 3PL reduce their client onboarding time by 75%. Today with me is Victor and Osanele. So guys, please introduce yourselves.
Hey Falek, nice chatting with you again. Hi everyone, my name is Victor Ekong. I'm a principal solutions architect with Maxima with over 13 years of experience. And my specialty is helping players in the logistics space, 3PL and merchants alike, rethink how their systems actually talk to each other. So I'm looking forward to our chat today. Thanks.
Hi, Felek. Nice to be back. So I'm a software engineer at Maxima, and my specialty is in building scalable and maintainable solutions to serve clients with high volume and high traffic. Looking forward to our discussion.
So, the main topic, one of our clients, were a 3PL that was known in the space, but they ran into a huge issue with onboarding new clients. It took a lot of time. They actually wasted money because of it, because the time to revenue was pretty slow. And at the same time, they had to deal with a market that's accelerating and a market that had more and more competitors who actually were competing on speed. So the only solution for them was to speed up the client onboarding, obviously. And I want to ask you to tell me about how you approached the project. What were the specific phases and what did you do for the client?
Thanks for that question, Falek. And this is a problem across the industry, right? It's not limited to the clients that we've worked with. I think it's a common problem. And this is because in our previous series we've talked about this, right? The legacy baggage. There are a lot of players in this sector keep carrying. They've carried. Some of them have modernized, but we still have this challenge today. So with one of our clients and the one you mentioned in particular, and the issue that they had at the time was that a lot of their customers had bespoke integration needs, right? And what they were doing was to keep building all of these customizations into their warehouse management system. And what we did when we went in was to kind of break that apart, right? Modularize all of this to have an integration middleware specifically for integration. And depending on the needs of the client, right, it's either we build specific systems or APIs, right, microservice for just that bespoke, again, depending on the complexity. But for the most part, right, the integration middleware was capable of doing this, right, through our custom and bespoke rules engine. So this was how we were able to bridge that. And how these actually aided the client and shortened the onboarding process was just the ease. Because now we had an integration middleware that supported legacy integration systems, right? So if they had a customer that was integrated and what they were doing predominantly was file-based exchange, we're not changing that. So this integration middleware was capable of processing, consuming those files that were being sent to wherever they were sent to. We process them to newer internal core systems for the client. So it was the integration middleware. It had a 360-degree view, right? For the want of a better word. And what I mean by that is it played the role of integrating merchants into the client ecosystem, integrating the client's integration middleware into their core systems, to their order management system, their WMS systems, right? Internal solutions as well. Transportation management systems. So the entire ecosystem, everything came through this. So you had just one middleware that was pretty much doing everything, right? That covers all ends and all integration needs. So it was a lot easier to manage enrichment of data. So if if data that needed to go into the OMS needed a certain type of enrichment, we're able to accommodate that. If that same data at the point where we are sending back a ship confirmation, not a ship confirmation, or generating a label, right, through the TMS system, required any form of enrichment, we're able to also perform that, right, through the same middleware, from source data or from statically configured data and or whatnot. So yeah, this was how we're able to, kind of bridge that divide, and what this meant, right, because in all of this, technical jargons that we've talked about, what is the impact on the business, right? That's the thing of value, right? So the impact on the business was the shortened onboarding time for our clients. So when they signed with a new merchant, the onboarding time was significantly shortened from months to just days, right? Because some of those integrations didn't require any code changes as they were before, which was the case. Whenever they were onboarding a new client, they were making significant code changes, right, to their stack. So with this, there was no such, all of these were just configuration. So we moved it from making code changes to onboard a client to just configuring to onboard a client, which significantly shortened and added more value, right? So this was the value add to the business, and the clients were pleased with this. And with this, they were able to get further along when it actually comes to, client onboarding and, acquiring new clients.
And also from the development perspective, how did that look like? Because, lots of things that had to happen before you reach that end state.
Absolutely, right. So by reducing onboarding time significantly, it meant that clients could begin their business as soon as possible, right? Say, for example, you're trying to onboard a new customer, and this customer has a lot of orders to process. You wouldn't want your business flow or your transactions to pause unnecessarily long. So being able to shorten that onboarding time meant that the amount of time that your business could be offline was significantly reduced. And I keep talking about building scalable and maintainable systems. One significant improvement we have made, right, is that we have been able to significantly increase the volume of transactions we process. We're talking about order management, 3PL. Imagine periods like Black Friday, where there's a shopping frenzy. People stay up all night doing videos just so that they can make purchases. During such periods, you have a very high transaction volume. So one of the problems we were able to solve for this client was that prior to our implementations, Black Friday was almost sort of a nightmare for the maintenance team, because you had systems that were facing a significant amount of load. Some of them were going offline. New machines had to be, spinned up to support the volume of these transactions. So one of the major improvements we have made was that we built a system that is so scalable that during the Black Friday period, during any peak season, when customers experience 3x, 4x, 5x the volume of transactions on the experience on a typical day, it felt like a normal day to us. Alarms were not going off. Everything was just moving smoothly. And the system is built in a way that it is self-healing, meaning that if it gets to a point where the volume of transactions are a lot, the system can automatically scale, or we could simply scale it by changing simple configuration. So that has been one of the major values we have added to the business, being able to process a significantly higher number of transactions within a shorter period of time.
That's awesome. And how did you avoid API mismatches during this? Because I know that that's one of the challenges and fears of technology leaders in 3PLs. Because one mismatch can, destroy everything, and then you have lots of alerts going off.
Yes, so that's a very good question. So first of all, right, whenever we're building any new system, there's always a strong emphasis on backward compatibility. In as much as you're trying to introduce something new, you don't want to break something that is already existing and working fine. So we have a very competent quality assurance team that extensively tests these systems, not just manual testing. They build a suite of automated tests. So once a new change is introduced, you have your basic unit tests running from developer perspective. Then have the automated testing that runs to check backward compatibility, does regression testing, and we then have further manual testing if need be to ensure that nothing is broken. So first of all, ensuring that there is support for backward compatibility is one way that we try to make sure that we don't have any, API mismatches. And the next point is extensive quality assurance testing.
Awesome.
And one more thing to add, right? As much as you're building these new systems, it's important to be able to build supporting systems around it. By supporting systems, I mean building systems from observability and monitoring and alerting. So that has been one area that we're also focused on. We put in a lot of effort in building dashboards, in building alerting systems such that whenever there's a problem, even before the client or whoever we're integrating with realizes there's a problem, we have already been notified and have already started to take steps to remedy that problem.
That's awesome. And so now when a new client wants to onboard into the 3PL's system, they just get handed an API key, or how does that work?
Yeah. So for onboarding clients, again, it all depends on the client, their security and network apparatus that they have in place. So we adapt to the client's ecosystem and whatever it is they have, right, to support this. So if they have an API gateway and whatever authorization and authentication mechanisms they have for their APIs, of course, we easily fit into and implement our system such that it fits into that structure or the apparatus that they already have. So we don't try to change this unless we see inefficiencies in it, right? So we're flexible, right? Meaning that whatever type of protocol that is required or means for authorization and authentication, we can adapt our integration middleware, right, to conform with that.
Yeah, that's good, because depending on the size of the merchant, they will either have resources to do the integration on their end, or it will be one person who's sitting in their office and trying to
exactly
work with a big 3PL. So
and I want to add on top of what Ose had said, right, about our competent QA. So to us, to Maxima, quality assurance, it's not just required for go live, right? As the name suggests, quality assurance, we equally ensure, right, the quality of the solution even in production. So we don't just deploy and hands off, and this is where observability and all of those things come into play, right? Meaning that we are constantly ensuring that the solution that we've put out there actually meets the bars that we've set from a quality standpoint. And more often than not, right, the bar we set is usually significantly higher than that of the client, because this is just the assurance that we give to the client in terms of the stability of our systems. And we've enjoyed, or our clients and ourselves, by extension, have enjoyed stable systems through peak. We're not bothered about peak. So often the client would go about, like, once it's near peak, they're running up and down trying to ensure that infrastructure, but we already know the guardrails and everything that we have in place from an observability standpoint, not just for the applications, but also for the infrastructures and platforms that these apps run on, right, to ensure uptime, right, and that they meet the needs of the business. So quality assurance extends far beyond go live, right, to the daily workings of those solutions.
That's great, because seriously, I believe that today you have to have that challenger mindset, especially when you're an expert in your niche, because when someone is in the business, they won't see many issues that are pretty obvious to you when you go coming from the outside. And I believe the biggest business value in working with people like us is with giving us the keys and making decisions together with us. Like, if you are someone who doesn't respect the insights that the consultant brings, like, maybe it doesn't make sense to work with a consultant and just get someone who will get in, get the job done and get out. But we believe that your system can be better,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to work with us to make it actually better. Because if your system is relying on legacy technology, if you're slow, and if you're losing clients to your competitors who are just forward thinking, AI first, and whatever the buzzword of the day will be, like, come on, work with people who've seen it, who've implemented it, and who can tell you what's the next step going to be, and not what's trending right now.
Oh yeah, no, that's a very good point, and this is where a lot of clients actually miss certain values that they would ordinarily get from from consulting partners like ourselves, right? Because they focus on the technical implementation. That is usually the key, but then beyond the technical implementation or before the technical implementation, there should be the advisory component, right? And which is what you're alluding to. And this is an area that we've been able to balance quite well, right, with our experience. So we go into the client, we understand the client's systems, their processes, their business, and we advise, right? Emphasis on advisory. And of course, the onus is on the client to take our advice because we are coming with a wealth of experience and having done this for very big players in the sector. So we are coming with a rich background when it comes to understanding the business needs. And this is where we then bring our experience to bear to advise on the best approaches to solving certain problems that we've identifying problems that are yet to crystallize, but we know they'll crystallize with volume, with the expansion as the client grows. And we tend to bring all of those things to bear. So it's been considered, right, in the implementation of whatever it is that we're implementing. So it's a full service, right? We advise and then we implement, we execute the implementation and ensure the quality of what is executed is met, right? The quality rather meets the expectations of the business, surpasses it, and actually meets our own expectation that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, and actually, like, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, because reduced client onboarding time by 75% for this client of ours, like from 2 months to 2 weeks, in some cases even days. Like, it's huge, especially if you have a solid brand and you are onboarding new clients into your network. Like, you don't want to wait 2 or 3 months for money to roll in.
Exactly.
Like, you want it to come fast and actually start fulfilling as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I'm forced to chime in, right? Because we've talked about, turnaround time in onboarding merchant to a 3PL, right? Which, like you rightly mentioned, we've been able to achieve 75% reduction. But I also want to highlight, because we've talked about this integration middleware being a full suite. All right, I also want to highlight the turnaround time in onboarding new core systems, like a new order management system or a new warehouse management system. And we've seen this come to play, right, where it's a massive project. When you're replacing a core system, it's like replacing a WMS for a 3PL is like replacing a core banking system for a bank. It's massive. That's the heart of their business.
I'm happy you made that interruption.
So, and I want to highlight that for one of our clients, they changed their warehouse management system completely, right? And they leveraged this integration middleware we built for them for integrating into their warehouse management system from their host, from other internal systems they have into the warehouse management system. We're responsible for this middleware. It's a massive project, right? And we handle the technical component of this integration. And this was the first part of the integration to go live. So we were further ahead, like miles ahead, behind the business teams and other teams that needed, because you need an army of team to have the warehouse system to work. But integration was ready months before the other components caught up. And what I'm getting at is, and they considered that to be, they thought it would be the bottleneck integration, because we're talking about integrating everything from ASNs to POs to orders to items. You're interfacing so many things. This is just inward into the WM, and then outward from the WM, all the messaging, the adjustment, right, the receipt, the confirmations, not just integrating them, but also enriching them such that, to access point, backward compatibility, such that we are not changing any host system to be able to consume the new messages. So we study what the host systems that we didn't know in the past, what they're consuming. We enriched and adapted those payloads, and there were no changes required on those downstream or upstream components. So this middleware handled all of this. So you can now think of the complexities of all of that integration and transformation, but this was done and we're months ahead of the timeline. And that just goes to show that the shortened time in onboarding is not just from a merchant perspective, but also from internal core systems perspective as well. Because I don't have the stats now, but I would think that the onboarding time for that was shortened by maybe 60%.
Jesus, yeah, that's huge. Yeah, Jose.
Excuse me. One more thing to add to that, right? We're talking about onboarding new clients, but it's important to know that each client has its own peculiarities. They have their own customizations. So as much as we're onboarding new clients, it's not just a case of, just give me your process and I copy and paste it into an existing system. Most of the time, we have to make slight tweaks or slight customizations to adapt or to accommodate this client's business. And like we've talked about in the previous session, where we built a sort of high-level abstraction that takes away the low-level implementation of those sort of customizations. So having that rules engine has significantly helped to shorten the onboarding time for clients.
Yeah. So would you say that it makes sense, like when a company is trying to replace legacy tech with new systems completely, does it make sense to first start with the integration layer if it will speed up the entire process later on and make it easier?
Thank you, Osai. That is usually the most challenging layer.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yes.
sometimes you should eat the frog first, but at the same time, you see that it will be a huge project, but it will impact everything later down the line.
Exactly. So that's usually the most complex layer, the most challenging one, and the most sensitive as well. You did mention about contract mismatch and stuff like that. So again, different customers with different requirements, and you need to adapt all of this. So I would think when it comes to this sort of modernization, that should be the layer to start with, right? In terms of modularizing, not just changing it completely, but then making it scalable. Scalable is, I can't emphasize the need for scalability enough, right? And that's because, the technology landscape is an constantly evolving landscape. You need to keep up, right? And if your systems are not scalable or not implemented or architected to be able to keep up with the rapid changes that we see in the world of technology, then you'll be changing those systems a lot. And what we tell our clients is that the integrations that we build out and the middleware would serve for the next 5 to 10 years. So whatever technologies come, it's easy to adapt. It's easy to integrate and customize this such that it would continue to serve your business without needing to change the underlying framework itself or actually changing the architecture of the system.
So also, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think, again, my emphasis is always on scalability because it's really important, right? Say, for example, like you mentioned, replacing the WMS of a 3PL is the equivalent of replacing the core banking application of a bank. Say, for example, you use X Bank today, right? It's possible that X Bank has replaced their core banking application multiple times. But you, as a user, as a customer who is using the application, you have absolutely no idea of what is happening.
Like, I'm pretty sure 99.5% people will never know.
Well, they will absolutely have no idea that something is going on. I mean, that's why sometimes you could get some sort of notification from your bank that between the hours of maybe 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Friday to Saturday, some services will be offline, right? Because sometimes you're performing some sort of maintenance or some sort of upgrade. So that shows you how critical the WMS is to a 3PL is the equivalent of a core banking application to a bank. So being able to replace it in a manner that is so seamless that the users, the end customers, absolutely don't feel the impact of that change. It's very, very important.
So 75% faster client onboarding, about 60%.
You can quote me on that one, but I think I think it's higher. Yeah,
It's high.
I need to get some metrics for you, but I think it's way higher. It might even be higher than that of client onboarding, but yeah.
So those two numbers are pretty solid, and they, proof in the pudding, as I said before.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Falek.
Thank you, Falek. Always a pleasure chatting with you.